I don't know what it is. Sometimes I sit down to read, and then the weather gets fucking wonky quick. So right now, there's a huge thunderstorm going on outside, but we will push ahead anyway, right? You don't need no stinking umbrellas. Anyway, all right, so we go chapter 15. Let's see here, we're going to go 15, 16, 17. Oh, we can go a little bit more. 18. Yeah, I think we can get 18 in here. And if I'm really rocking, we might get to 20. That would be about 30 pages. So let's just see where we go. All right. All right. Chapter 15 follow up. December 17, 2011, Salt Lake City, 2:40 p.m. Sonari had been troubled by the visit with Rachel. Something wasn't right. She had never seen auras shifting as they had with Rachel, and the shared vision was more than troubling. It kept playing over and over again within Zanari's mind, making it difficult to maintain her mirrors. She didn't know why, but she kept one within the neighborhood of Rachel. Many of the mirrors had moved on to other states and were making excellent progress. Zanari knew she had to speak with the human and examine her closer. It was rare to find a human with such honed abilities anymore. In ages past, there were clusters here and there that were naturals. As Zanari and the other watchers prepared for the shift, they were told the stories, but also told not to expect much from the humans, as they become lazy and more obsessed with technology than nature, and the vast majority of them would be unattuned. This would hold true in most of the industrialized countries of the planet, yet there, in one of the most heavily industrialized and glutinous societies on the planet, was a human who not only possessed the gift of sight, but also a prismatic aura which seemed to intensify when Anukai were near. She focused on the mirror that also seemed to be fixated on the human, and within a moment Zanari's vision blurred a bit, and she was once again standing outside Rachel's house. She walked up to the front door and went to knock. To her surprise, the door opened before her knuckles touched it. Rachel stood there smiling, a warm, genuine smile. Zanari couldn't help but smile back. Zanari, I was starting to wonder if I would ever actually meet you. I could feel your presence slightly, but it would fade in and out. Zanari nodded, and Rachel stepped to the side and waved her arm back in a wide arc. Well, come on in. Don't stand out there in the cold. Thank you, Rachel. Well, I see we already know each other by name. Zanari walked in and waited. Rachel closed the door and hurried past Zanari. She rushed into the kitchen and poked her head out briefly. Are you hungry? Thirsty? Zanari slowly shook her head and said, No, thank you. Rachel came back with a small plate and sliced apples and cut them in a cup that smelled of warm cinnamon and apples. I love apples, Rachel said with a smile. She sat down on the couch where Zanari had first watched her sleep. Do you dream often? Zanari asked as she examined Rachel's aura again. It was the same. Whenever she was closest to Zanari, the aura would react. It was perplexing to Zanari. Rachel pointed to a bookshelf full of journals, some of which were worn down and looked very old. I write 'em all down. It takes a lot of time, but it's important, I think, to do it. Been doing it since I was a little girl. Dreaming, that is. The journaling was something I started years later. I enjoy going back and reviewing the dreams and then seeing which version played out. Zanari sat down across Rachel and listened intently. I've been dreaming of you, Anakai, for a long time. I have seen your home, and the forest, the trees that sing, and the wind that carries the old. Zanari's eyes widened. As far as she knew, no human was ever reported as being able to see beyond his or her own plane. So how was this woman able to do it? You've seen my home? Rachel nodded. Yep, not often, but I have seen it 5 times. And the only thing that occurs as often was dreams of ᶠᶸᶜᵏ. He shows up in many of the dreams. You started showing up in my dreams roughly a year ago. Zanari paused and considered what the woman was saying. It was interesting. There was only a few Anukai which had shifted to the crust more than once. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ was the Anukai with the most visits. Zanari concluded there must be a connection with the shifting in Rachel's dreams. Perhaps you saw through a window left by our kind shifting. Rachel threw her arms up and laughed a warm laugh. Doesn't matter about the how and why. I see and I write. You see and you mark. I've watched you doing some sort of marking on people in a couple of dreams. How far ahead are your dreams? Zanari asked. Well, they used to range. The furthest dream I had was when I was only 9. I saw my father die in a car accident. It was similar each time I dreamed it. It was 10 years until that accident actually happened. Seems like the average is no more than 2 years. Most of them seem to be random, though. I just lay down, go to sleep, and they come to me. I have to admit, though, lately the dreams have been mostly about you folks. Rachel, do you know about the large creature which chased you in your dream? Rachel's smile faded quick at the mention of the drake. She nodded. Yes, I've seen this kind before. I believe ᶠᶸᶜᵏ even knows that big fella on a personal level. I've seen them lock horns before, and lately, when they battle it out, it's been a toss-up. Sometimes the beast wins, sometimes ᶠᶸᶜᵏ wins. This is why I told you the other day to not get too upset with what you've seen. Nothing is set in stone. I'm not saying you can change anything. I know I tried everything in my power to prevent my dad from driving. I even tried to convince him to walk everywhere or take a bus, even take a cab, since my dreams are always of him driving. I tried to get my mom to drive us everywhere. Eventually, though, he died. Some things have to happen. I never saw my dad survive. He always died. That's why I'm saying there's hope. Țânări sat and listened. The look on her face must have given away her feelings as Rachel reached over and held her hand. Trust me. If it was meant to be, it's meant to be. No one can question what God wishes to happen. Țânări nodded. The Anakai also believed in a divine being, which set the stage of life and allowed them to learn and grow. She smiled. Yes, you are right. Still, it is troubling to see it. Rachel took an apple slice and took a bite. This is where you leave in my dream. Țânări smiled. She had begun to find an excuse to leave the human and did not want to be rude. She was relieved at the interruption and nodded. Yeah, in my dream you tried a lot of different ways of saying goodbye without hurting my feelings. I know you have important stuff to take care of, and I know I'll see you again. Glad you decided to stop in and chat. Țânări stood, as did Rachel. She glanced across the room and smiled. She glanced across the room, and a small mirror was there. She caught the faintest flicker of her own aura and noticed it, too, was shifting rapidly as Rachel was near. Interesting, she said aloud. What's that? Țânări smiled and said, It's nothing. I feel relaxed around you is all. That makes me happy. You looked like you had weight of the world on your shoulder when I saw you earlier. Glad that you enjoyed our visit. Rachel hugged Țânări, and at first she didn't know what to do. After a pause, she returned the hug and made sure she only gently squeezed. She knew the humans were fragile and did not want to injure one as special as Rachel. Thank you for inviting me in and talking. Any time. Țânări walked to the door and simply walked through it and disappeared from Rachel's sight. Wow, you don't see that every day, Rachel laughed and started to clean up. Țânări released the mirror to keep an eye on Rachel from a distance. She was concerned that the draconian from the dream was after the human, and knew that Rachel played some part in the convergence. She'd have to counsel with ᶠᶸᶜᵏ to discuss what had happened and what could happen. She returned to her solitude and wondered if she should be blunt about it and just tell ᶠᶸᶜᵏ what she had seen, or just avoid it altogether. What would that do to someone if they knew certain action could be their last? According to Rachel, no matter what you did, if it was meant to happen, it would happen. So if that were true, she felt there was no harm in discussing the dream with ᶠᶸᶜᵏ the next time they spoke. Țânări examined herself again and noticed her aura was normal. Why did it shift as it did around Rachel? What could cause that? She now had a few more questions than she did before the meeting with the human, and she feared more would present themselves to her as time went by. Woo-wee! Okay, Chapter 16. Ground Zero. December 17, 2011, New York, 8:59 p.m. Tim and ᶠᶸᶜᵏ had made their way down to Chambers Street, and even after all the time that had passed since 9/11, the area was still fenced off and protected with intimidating guards. Tim looked at ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, who smiled and placed his hand on Tim's shoulder. Do not speak. Simply think. I will hear your thoughts. As long as I hold on to you, no one should see us. We will make noise, though, and need to be very careful when we walk. For if we are careless and someone really looks at us, they will see us. Do you understand? Tim nodded. Yeah, I guess. Don't be a dumbass and make a shitload of noise. Okay, I got to tell you guys something. So, in the book, there's asterisks to let you know there's telepathic communication going on. And I don't really know how to signify that while reading. So, that might have sounded like a contradiction right there. Like, okay, don't make a noise, don't talk, but they're having a conversation. That's telepathic. So what I'll do is, as they enter into a telepathic mode, I'll say entering telepathic mode, and then they'll go. And then if there's actually something that's said aloud, I'll say said aloud or something of that nature, okay? Yeah, I guess, don't be a dumbass and make a shitload of noise. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ nodded. He positioned Tim in front of him and gently pushed Tim in the direction he wanted him to go. Wait, there's a big-ass fence coming up in front of us. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ kept pressing Tim forward. Do not be concerned with the fence. We will pass through it as if it is not even there. Tim walked and easily passed through the fence. The area that made contact with him tingled wildly, like an angry nerve ending being inflamed. Man, that feels weird. Wait until we pass through a wall. The harder and thicker the material, the more uncomfortable it gets. Treat the fence as a lesson. We have a long way to go to get to the vein. Tim nodded and carefully... Damn, the thunder's just rolling. What the fuck? Damn, that shit sounded like a fucking explosion. Anyway, wait until we pass through a wall. The harder and thicker the material, the more uncomfortable it gets. Treat the fence as a lesson. We have a long way to go to get to the vein. Tim nodded and carefully chose the steps. Even being careful, Tim made noise. It was hard for him not to. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, on the other hand, didn't make a sound. This made Tim wonder. Can I ask you a question? Tim thought. Yes. Why do you even need me? I mean, you're stronger, faster, can do magic and shit. Why do you need me around? Tim, I have but 2 eyes, as do you, and you severely underestimate what you're capable of. But, if you need a reason, I enjoy your company. Also, when I am using the vein in the tunnels below, I will need all of my concentration. It is then that I am vulnerable. I need someone to say, how do you say? Watch my back. Tim nodded. Cool, I can do that, I think. Wait, when you say you'll need all your concentration, are we going to be invisible? No. And you won't be able to super ninja anyone who comes down there looking for us? No. So if someone comes down, what am I supposed to do? I leave that for you to decide. I suppose knocking them out or killing them quickly comes to mind. Wait, you want me to kill some Joe who might come in on us while he's working a job? ᶠᶸᶜᵏ paused. Yes, you were eager to kill me when we first met. Dude, that was different. I was fucked up on drugs and just trying to score. I don't think I can do that straight. Don't get me wrong. I've done a shit ton of bad things in my life, but it all feels so wrong now, you know? ᶠᶸᶜᵏ nodded. He knew this could be a problem. Tim, anyone is capable of doing anything if the right pressure is applied. I need you to help me, and if that means killing someone in the process, then you have to do it. Desmond, man, I don't know. I'm fucking scared, man. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ looked Tim in the eyes. Tim, if you fail me, Joy will die. Tim's mouth dropped. What? If you fail me, I will kill Joy. What? This is more important than you or me. We need to succeed. I need to know you can do this. Tim's mind was racing. His heart pounded hard against his chest. Fuck it. I got you, man. Just get in and out. Fuck, you're a cold piece. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ was quiet as he continued to direct Tim. Ground Zero was for the most part was finished. The building jutted up into the sky and was all dark. It was like a lifeless monolith. All the glass was in, standing at the base of One World Trade Center, formerly known as the Freedom Tower, was something else. The building was 1,700 feet tall and resembled a giant hypodermic needle made of stone and glass. Tim thought everything looked done until they were inside. There were still lots of vacant walls and wires hanging in bunches. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ directed Tim to the stairs, and they went to the sub-basement too. This is where it gets uncomfortable. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ gently pushed Tim towards the solid wall, and Tim hesitated. He had subconsciously ducked down as they passed through the wire fence to protect his eyes, but as he approached the solid wall, his heart pounded. How thick is it? I do not know. How do I breathe? You will not be able to. Also, you will not be able to see. This is going to be uncomfortable and I imagine very scary for you. Take deep breaths and let me know when you are ready. Tim calmly took 6 deep breaths and nodded as he inhaled deeply. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ started pushing Tim in a direction, and Tim walked. As his feet hit the wall, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was excruciating. Fuck, this hurts. It will pass. Just focus and keep moving. Tim's legs and lower torso entered the stone, and he wanted to scream. Keep moving. Tim's head entered into the wall. The world went black. He saw flickering lights in his eyes as if he had spent 10 seconds pressing on his eyes. He couldn't tell if he was still moving, and he couldn't feel ᶠᶸᶜᵏ. The fact he was still thinking let him know that ᶠᶸᶜᵏ was still with him. Tim feared what would happen if Kuthanaga let go of him. Tim pushed forward. He was pushing with all his might, and he felt his heart pounding heavily, and the sparkling flashes of light in his eyes were intensifying. We are near, Tim. Just a few more steps. Tim felt a huge tug, and suddenly his feet no longer resisted, and his legs followed. A second later, light poured into his eyes, and he gasped. He fell and was instantly lifted by Kuthanaga. You will get used to that sensation. You did well. I feared you would pass out, and yet you did not. Be proud. Whatever. Where the hell are we going? Where the hell are we? Looking around, they were in a large room, roughly 100 feet by 100 feet. Tim couldn't see any doors. What is this place? Kuthanaga pointed at the center of the room, and there was a small hole in the ground. I knew it. They have the vein exposed and are trying to figure out how to tap into it. Great, so this is good? Kuthanaga shook his head. No, this is bad. The Draconians have learned a lot. They know about the veins. That means they know much more than I feared. When I am in the hole, you must be very careful. If a Drake finds you, I'm not confident of the confrontation. If you're faced with a Drake, you must aim for its eyes. That is the only spot on the body which is vulnerable to your gun. Anywhere else will hurt it, but only serve to upset it more. Tim got nervous at that. He fired guns lots of time and was a decent shot, but the idea of shooting something in the eye while it was coming at him didn't sit well. The eyes, huh? Yes. Do not miss. Kuthanaga examined the room, and after walking the area twice, positioned himself over the hole in the center of the room. The hole was roughly 5 feet wide in diameter, and Tim couldn't see how far down it went. Okay, Tim. I will attempt to make this as quick as possible. Cool. Sounds good. Kuthanaga released his grip on Tim, and he pulled out the small vial with the earth's milk in it. Tim watched as Kuthanaga closed his eyes, and Tim swore he saw a ghostly vision slide out from Kuthanaga's body. As it slid away, the vial faded from Kuthanaga's hand. Tim looked around and had his pistol out with the safety off. He listened hard and heard nothing. He scanned the room a third time around, and he started getting nervous. He didn't know why, but he felt like he was being watched. Reaching in his inside pocket, he slid three magazines onto his belt. He noticed the temperature was rising, and he began to sweat. Speaking aloud, "What the fuck?" He walked over to Kuthanaga and whispered, "Dude, hurry up. I got a bad feeling." Not seeing any reaction from Kuthanaga, Tim decided to put his back against the wall opposite to standing in the center of the room. He started backing up. As he did, Tim heard something and turned to see what it was. A quick blur, and Tim realized he was in the air. He slammed the far wall hard, and he couldn't catch his breath. He knew he had cracked ribs or two, or maybe a punctured lung. Looking up, he could see his assailant. It resembled a man with exaggerated muscles and scaled skin. "Fuck!" He coughed and blood came out. The hulking man was moving fast. Amazingly, Tim still had the gun in his hand. His knuckles were white as he swung the gun up to eye level and fired. Chapter 17, Deal. December 17, 2011, New York, 11:59 p.m. Kuthanaga descended quickly for 20 seconds, slowed, and stopped in a small alcove. He entered it and was covered in light. There was something there in the alcove with him, a being that emitted power. That was something he had not expected. He realized it was a guardian of some sort. It was made of light and moved like smoke, and it glowed with such intensity it made it hard for Kuthanaga to gaze upon it. "Who are you?" it asked Kuthanaga. "I am Kuthanaga of the Anukai." "What is your intention, Kuthanaga of the Anukai?" "I want to return the milk of the earth." "Do you know what will happen to this vein if you place the milk into it?" Kuthanaga shook his head. "I can only guess at what will happen. The vein extends to many smaller veins which lead out into the world of the humans. If you place the milk in it, it will replace the water within the veins. That will then flow milk to the humans. They cannot be trusted with the sacred liquid. You are forbidden from doing this." "Does the mother forbid this?" The being shook his head. "No, we forbid it. The humans are petty, wild, and savage. The milk will drive them mad. We will not be responsible for this. I will be the one who carries the burden. My people know the risks involved, but as the mother awakens, many of the humans will die. By using the milk, we can quickly determine who is worthy of protection." The guardian thought about Kuthanaga said and replied, "And if your calculations are wrong, it will be known that the Anukai were solely responsible for the extinction of the humans. Know this, outsider. We represent the mother herself. Her will is law. The humans have done much to her, and as such have no love from us. If you are wrong, and your mother is unhappy, you will be made to pay. The worst will come to you, Kuthanaga. Kuthanaga was unsure. He was taking a great risk. The guardian came closer. Why do you hesitate? Do you not have faith? I do. I am just weighing what you have said, and am giving it the respect it deserves before making a decision. The guardian nodded. Also, there will be a price to pay for this, Kuthanaga of the Anukai. Price? Yes. There will come a time when the mother may be in need. When that time comes, you will assist her guardians with no question. That goes without saying. We Anukai respect the mother. We gladly defend her. Then you have our permission to use this vein. Kuthanaga took the vial and opened it. Taking the silver spike, he pressed it into the soft earth. Gently he poured the liquid into the spike. The liquid bubbled, and a few seconds later there was no sign of it. You have done what you requested. Now you must leave. Kuthanaga knew better than to argue. Something told him that the guardian was very old and very powerful. He left without a word and slowly returned to the surface. He slid into his body, and instantly he smelled blood and gunpowder. He spun around and saw a drake lying down in a pool of blood a few inches away from Tim, who was crumpled up in a fetal position. Kuthanaga moved over to Tim and focused. Tim had several broken bones, severe internal bleeding, and a punctured lung. After a few seconds, Tim opened his eyes and groaned. Glancing down at the drake on the ground, Kuthanaga grinned. Looks like you're a better shot than you gave yourself credit for. Tim shrugged. Had to do it for Joy. I knew if I missed, she would die. Kuthanaga grinned a toothy smile at Tim. You know, Tim, I was telling you a lie. I wanted to illustrate a point. I am fond of Joy, and wanted nothing bad to happen to her. I want nothing bad to happen to her or you. You need to look within to find the strength. Tim, I chose you for a reason. I chose you because I know you can do what I ask. As Kuthanaga spoke, he motioned over Tim. A familiar warmth passed into Tim, and he was able to breathe again without effort or pain. Kuthanaga grabbed the drake on the ground and slid his body towards the large hole in the ground. He rolled the body over and could see that Tim's shot had indeed hit its mark. Rolling the body once more, and it fell down the shaft. Tim stood up and slowly stretched. You're lucky you can kick my ass. Why is that? Asked Kuthanaga with a slight grin. Because I would love to kick you in the balls for that shit. I really believed you were going to kill Joy if I didn't make it. Kuthanaga held Tim's shoulder again, pushed outwards towards the wall. Telepathically now. Actually, if I failed, it would have been a non-issue. We fail and the human race will cease to exist within a year. You and I need to have a long discussion soon about what it is that I just did and what it will mean soon. What do we do now? Take a deep breath. Tim did, and as the second time through the wall wasn't as bad as the initial attempt. As they came out the other end, Kuthanaga continued. We go back to Vegas and wait. We listen for the news. Tim shrugged. He was happy to be heading back to Vegas. He thought about nothing else but Joy as he lay broken on the floor bleeding. Sounds good to me. What about the drake we left back in the hole? Wishful thinking. Let us be positive and deal with that problem if it arrives. Tim and Kuthanaga continued on their way, and later that morning they were on a flight back to Vegas. Tim slept the whole flight. Kuthanaga silently worried. Much had changed on the crust since his last visit, and the Draconians were more organized and had nearly limitless resources. He hoped luck was on his side. Alright, chapter 18. Man, my eyes are bugging out, guys. I don't know why. It's just fucking blurry. Anyway, chapter 18, Trespassers. December 18, 2011, New York, 7:35 a.m. Richard was stretching and preparing for his daily run when his phone began vibrating. Looking down, he saw it was Raymond Oakes, head of security for Tower 1. Yes? Sir, there has been a breach in Sublevel 2, the core room. When? Richard didn't like this. The full week of bad news just kept getting worse, and he was aggravated to no end. He would need to blow off some steam, and run was exactly what he needed. But he also knew the core room was one of the potential treasure troves that was to be protected at any cost. Last night, one of our guards never checked in, and a thorough search has been completed. Richard knew it wasn't a case of the guards stepping off his post, as the guards for the core were purebloods, who would protect the core room with their life. Lock it down. Make sure all videos are collected and sent to me. I'm on my way. Already working on that, sir. Richard hung up the phone and changed his clothing. He would have to find an alternative way to relax. after the breach was investigated. Walking downstairs to the main foyer, Richard called his brother. 3 rings later, and Sam picked the phone up breathless. "Morning, brother," Richard said as he exited the house and headed for the long black limo. "Hey, Rich, what's up?" "What's up with you? Why so winded?" Richard could hear moaning in the background and recognized it. Just working out is all." "Just working out Sharon. She'd know better than to lie to me. Be careful with that one. She leaves marks." "Ow! Yes, I know. Careful, please." Richard smiled. It was good to see Sharon had taken it upon herself to help Sam with his broken heart. He may have been truly in love with his wife, but no pure blood could resist the seduction of another Draconian if she wanted him. Even a half-breed would have her way. Sam's blood must have wanted Sharon for a while, and even everyone knew Sharon was a beast, so it was just a matter of time. "Sam, I'll check back with you. I'm on my way to the core room. We've had an incident there, so if you need me, you'll have to use a landline." Sam was moaning. "Okay." Richard hung up the phone and regarded the driver. "Tower 1, please." The driver simply nodded, and they were off. Richard pulled out a sliding tray that was on a seat next to him. It swiveled out. He flipped up a display that was on the top part of the tray, and a small keyboard and mouse were revealed. A login screen popped up. He entered his credentials and waited. A second later, there were many icons lined neatly on the left-hand side of the screen. He double-clicked an icon called Security Logs, and inside the folder were 32 more icons of different projects. He found a folder named Tower 1, and he double-clicked. There were 24 files, twice as many audio files, and 3 special files. The 3 special files are what he was looking for. There are room measurements of temperature, air consumption, and room weight. The Draconians had been looking for the vein for a long time and knew it would help them locate other access points that would provide Project Tiamat with additional backup energy. They wanted to protect the room, and so they designed it to only have one access point to the roof level, made sure there was always a guard posted there. The room had many sensitive sensors in place to record, and if they were tripped, the guard would investigate. Richard brought up a query dialog box and typed in a search for any alarms. He saw all 3 alarms were tripped at 12:21 a.m. The audio revealed a short battle which ended with a single gunshot. Groans of pain could be heard. The labored breathing went on for a while until he heard a man's voice. Listening to the conversation, he learned of Tim, Joy, and the fact that Tim had been the one who killed the guard. In addition, there was some coercion towards Tim, a threat against Joy's life, also some sort of mission. Analyzing the weight sensor showed 556.056 pounds suddenly appeared in the room and then fluctuated 235.025. Richard wondered whether extra 321.03 pounds disappeared. The weight jumped to 647.099, and Richard deducted that must have been when the guard showed up. It reappeared in the room a few moments before the conversation was recorded. The room was 968.130. The weight dropped down to 556.054 again near the end of the conversation. Richard noted they left with 0.002 pounds less than he had entered the room with. The air consumption showed similar results. There were 3 things which bothered Richard. The first was how these strangers had known about the core room. The second was how they had gotten in. And finally, what were they doing there? He played many possible scenarios in his head as they drove along the streets. He had a good idea where the missing guard was. The only problem was going to be extracting his body if it was where he thought it was. The core hole to the vein was deep, and it got hotter as you reached the bottom. To make matters worse, there were some anomalies in regards to recording video in the room itself. Whenever they attempted to film, the video would just be pure white. It didn't matter how they tried to record. Audio and everything else would record, just not video. They had probed the shaft many times and could detect different energy pockets, but hadn't figured out how to tap the vein. The Kunux had promised they would solve the mystery after they had completed the Tiamat Project's first trial run. Richard grinned. He was almost certain an Anukai was involved. They had many tricks to get in where they were not welcome. He wondered why risk a mission with a human and not another Anukai. It was obvious the human had been nearly killed by the Draconian guard. It was just luck he was able to hit one of the few weak spots on him. Anukai knew the weak spots of the Drakes, especially a very special Anukai. "Why, Kuthanaga, is it you?" "It is you, isn't it, old friend?" Richard smiled. If it was indeed ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, he was certain they would meet face to face before everything was said and done. After all, Richard had taken something very precious from ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, and even though he was Anukai, he knew he wanted Richard's head more than anything in the world. He wondered if somehow ᶠᶸᶜᵏ knew about the Tiamat project and was trying to somehow sabotage it. It didn't matter. By the end of the day, the core room would be cleaned and searched from top to bottom, and what Richard didn't know, he would know more of by then. He called Raymond and waited. Sir, yes, I'm getting a team down there. Please make sure no one disturbs the room. Are there any guards in there now? Yes, sir. Officer Gould has been down there since shift change. Good. I'm only about 20 minutes out. My team will be there soon. Understood. He hung up and focused his attention on the screen in front of him. He selected an icon called Cleanup, and he double-clicked on it. A box came up with simple drop-down menu and a submit button. He dropped down the menu and selected Tower 1 Core Room and clicked Submit. A message window came up stating the message had been sent. Richard knew it would take the team 10 minutes to get to the front lobby. He decided to follow up on the status of Tiamat and the materials requested by the Kunaks. He double-clicked on another icon called Projects, and a security screen popped up. He placed his thumb on the tray in a slightly curved section on the bottom right. He barely felt the needle slide into his thumb. A moment later, the security screen passed, and several projects he was responsible for popped up on the screen. He located Tiamat and double-clicked. A chat screen opened on the right-hand side, and left had a series of jobs assigned to various people. He saw the materials that Dimitri had asked for were delivered earlier that same day. Well, I hope this makes Dimitri happy. He double-clicked Dimitri's name in the chat side of the screen, and it had an icon next to his name saying he was away from desk. Richard quietly typed, "You have your supplies. I expect results ASAP. Please let me know when you are able to do a first full test. I'd like to be there to witness the results." He pressed enter, and it showed up in the chat window. He showed down the terminal, pushed it back in the housing unit, and poured himself a drink. The remainder of the ride was uneventful and quiet. He stared outside the window and watched all the humans as he passed them. After 4 security checkpoints, they finally ended up where they needed to be. He walked to the front desk and could see all the guards on duty, and he was satisfied that they were competent and fully charged up. His team was there as well. He motioned his team followed while the human team stayed at the front desk. Raymond knew the drill, didn't mind. The job was stable and paid very well. He had great benefits, and his bosses were strict but fair. With a family of 5 and bills to pay, he would scrub toilets if they asked. The team moved quickly and quietly and made their way to the sub-basement. When they got to the secured area, Richard punched in the code on the keypad and waited while his retina was scanned. The door slid open and they entered a small room and then the core room. Jumping down, they landed quietly and smoothly. Richard looked around and canvassed the room. He got to one of the walls and could see a small series of blood droplets. He motioned to the team, which had been checking other areas. They came over and instantly began collecting evidence. While they did, he examined the shaft and peered down it. It was dark, and a low rumble could be heard deep within. Near the shaft, he could see some blood smears. "I think our lost guard is down there. You'll have to gear up and go down to verify. I'm done here. When you get the blood analyzed, look for a match with the name Tim." A couple of the team nodded and went back to work. Richard walked to the exit and with an effortless jump was out of the room. "Sir, what should I do?" asked Officer Gould. "Stay posted here until relieved." He nodded, and Richard exited. As he got near the front desk, he received a text message from Christy. It simply read, "I'm hungry." He nodded to himself. Her timing was perfect. Raymond acknowledged Richard as he walked back to his limo. Richard jumped into the limo and instructed the driver to take him to Christie's. He knew it would be a few hours before the results from the investigation yielded anything of more use than what he already knew, and Christie was just the diversion he was looking for. Whoo-wee! You know what? I'm going to have to stop there, guys. My eyes are wigging out here, so I'm going to call it right there. So, ᶠᶸᶜᵏ had an interaction with a Guardian, and Guardian laid down some heavy-duty threats, and ᶠᶸᶜᵏ is kind of like, okay, let's see if we could do this. Oh, excuse me. So anyway, that ends this episode. I hope you guys are digging this. If you like it, please subscribe. Tell all your friends. Until next time, please. Be good to each other.